kind of in the midst of all of that, then we end up dealing with the loss, the loss of Devin. Yeah. And so those that, if you ever been to our house, or even if you've been watching the teddy bear that my wife is holding, inside of the teddy bear is our daughter's ashes. Look, it's me and you against the world, girl, and I ain't talking slick. Others may have said it, but they worldview was midget. That means it wasn't big enough for what life would experience. Hey everybody, welcome back to Tanks Talk Podcast. I'm Pastor Tanks, and I'm here with my wife,
DdTanks.
DdTanks, and again, man, we are so excited to be sharing with you our journey from how we went from asking for a divorce, coming back from the honeymoon, to getting ready to celebrate 10 years
of
marriage this June. I'm excited. I can't wait. I feel like it's going to be really special that day.
Okay.
Because it's 10 years. I feel like there's a different...
The day is special, or just
the moment.
The season?
The moment. It's 10 years. Okay. Like, that's a decade.
It is a long time. It's a lot of my life. That's like my whole adulthood.
Yeah, because we got married when you was 23, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a lot of your life.
That's a lot, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'll be 38, so I'm a little bit older, but, you know, there ain't that much of my life, but it's still 10 years.
You could have just said it was a lot of yours, too.
Okay.
Yeah, talk about what
nothing about you is a lot, because time go by so fast. It feel like yesterday, girl.
Babe, do what we talk about.
Listen, man, we have been telling them about our journey from asking for a divorce from the honeymoon. So we've talked about intimacy issues. We talked about our dating process, all of that stuff. And in this one, we're going to now talk about the idea of what it means to choose to love. There is in marriage the constant choice to choose to love one another, even when the other person is unlovable and or just doesn't want to be loved.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I think society would say, man, if you don't love them no more, like you can leave. Or if they don't love you, like you ain't got to put up with that. Like you deserve somebody that's going to love you the way you need to be loved. Like that's kind of like the whole message. And the message of Christ as clearly believing Christians, the message of Christ is much different than that, right? The message of Christ is that while we were his enemies, he chose to die for us. He displayed his love to us with the hopes that in return, we would love him back. And in our marriage, I had to come face to face. We eventually together had to come face to face with that reality of, oh, wait a minute. This is what Christ did for us. Now we have to go and do that for each other.
Yeah. I think I was difficult in a lot of ways. One of them is I was experiencing, we talked about it in another episode or a previous episode, but like just experiencing just diverse stuff with my emotions that was new to me. So you had that going on to where like I was crying and all that other stuff and feeling things I wasn't accustomed to feeling. But also I had like this level of like anger and frustration in a lot of things, especially when it came to me not getting my way or not getting what I wanted. So
you said you was a brat?
That did not come out of my mouth at all.
Oh. Is that a false conclusion?
I think that's yes, that is a false conclusion.
Okay. But you're definitely the youngest child.
I am the youngest, and I am well loved.
So you guys,
I'm the youngest and I am well loved.
Go ahead.
And I am accustomed in life to things going my way. And so when things don't go my way, especially then, I got angry and I didn't know how to deal with a lot of my anger. So, because I wasn't accustomed to being angry. And so, I didn't always respond in the most appropriate way. There was a couple times where like, I didn't harm you.
No, I definitely would never let a 5'2"
don't do that
person harm me.
Don't do that.
But go ahead.
Don't do that.
You definitely tried.
But I attempted.
Yeah, absolutely.
A couple times. You counted?
I know every time I had to walk out the house not to harm you.
Which you don't. While you was airing all your grievances, I stayed quiet.
Oh, okay. I'll let you continue.
And so there was a couple times, you said 3, in which I tried to lay my hands on you. I don't condone violence at all. I don't condone spouses, significant others, using any level of physical violence or verbal violence at all towards one another. However, there was a season where I lacked a lot of self-control in that area when it came to my anger. And so when I didn't get my way and I got to the point where I was really angry, I wanted to hit something, and you were a good target at the time to try to harm.
Definitely try to harm, but it's all good though, man. I'm big and strong enough that you were not able to. No, but I always jokes like that was like a real season. Like I remember like the first time I'm like, is this little girl trying to hurt me?
And you make it because all I did.
Oh, you did what?
I didn't touch you the first time. I like came in your direction.
Man, you ran up on me.
Okay.
Like you was gonna do something to me, and I had to literally be like, "Are you about to try to do something to me?" And then you had to pause in your tracks. And
that's called self-control.
And one time, it literally you did try to swing on me. I had to grab you and put you on the couch and then leave out the house because you. I
do remember
because you were actually trying to, and I was on the phone with Pastor again. Like, Pastor, like, listen, I'm not about to let this girl, she's not about to be swinging on me. Like, I ain't never had a woman swinging on me and they got away with it. Not that I harmed them, but I had sisters and I was like, I'm definitely not dealing with that. And I was packing. I was like, I'm out. This girl crazy. And my dad sent me back.
He sent you back home, as he should have.
Hey, man, here's a good word for all of you in-laws and family, loved ones, friendship. Man, be the type of person that sends people back home when they try to come. My dad said, well, one, he sent me home because he's like, you ain't about to live here? And two, he sent me back home like, y'all better go work it out. And he came over here.
He sure
y'all come sit on this couch, y'all.
Trying to give us marital advice.
It was all bad. But but that's my dad. He was like, y'all ain't about to make this thing not work. But that was like a real thing. And I feel like even though that was annoying, that was easier to work through. It was just like, man, who this girl thinks she is, man. Like, I'm not gonna put my hands on her, but she gonna have to slow down or at least attempting to harm me. And so I think that was easier to work through because it was more funny than anything. Many times
that was funny.
The thought of it was a little bit funny to
humorous
me. Absolutely. But there was another time though where it got super duper real when it came to having to ask the question, man, do I want to remain married to my wife? And if I want to go through that, because we were in the midst of still going through, I mean, everything else, like we're telling you guys our journey and our story. We're not doing it in chronological order.
Right.
We're telling you what things look like in our marriage. So at the same time, we're going through all of that other stuff. You still are at that time. Well, at this time,
lost Devin.
Yeah, well, not yet.
I guess it depends on which time.
Yeah, but it was in between all of these, like many things were taking place. This was all of that first year season.
Yeah.
Like most of the stuff we're talking about, we're still telling you guys first 4 or 5 months of marriage.
We're just learning each other.
Yeah. And
like, I don't know about that one.
I don't know about that one. But you remember what you said to me one day?
When I said I didn't love you?
Yeah.
I remember saying it. I don't remember what led up to me saying that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember the situation. I remember throwing my ring at you or throwing my ring off a couple times.
Oh, you want to at me? Got you. I understand.
Did I?
I don't know.
I think I just took it off. I don't think I threw it at you.
Got you. Not even, who knows? But no, the thing was, I think that was when you like legitly looked and it was just like I don't love you.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, oh, she just mad talking. Like, it was like,
no, I didn't.
Yeah. And it was one of those things where it was like, but we don't believe in like divorce. And so I remember calling my pastor. Like, it had got so real to me. I remember crying.
Yeah.
Because I called my pastor and I'm like, all right, man, you said no to the other couple times. I'm like, but this woman is telling me she don't love me. Surely this is a reason to leave this marriage. And I remember my pastor said to me, he was like, son, like you gotta help her love you. And I just kind of remember like, it's on me.
Yeah.
Like I gotta go do something. And I remember being up in the middle of the night praying and like legitimately crying like, man, God, you gonna have to help me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how to fight. I can fight for somebody that loves me, But I don't know how to fight a fight when somebody's saying, like, why am I fighting?
Right.
Like, if they don't love me, what is the fight for? And I remember that was when I had to come, at least for me, there were moments where clearly I was not lovable, but that was the moment for me where I had to really sit and say, and the gospel really met me like face to face in a marriage and was like, yeah, that's what I did for you. Like, I loved you when you didn't love me. And eventually you chose me, even though I had already chose you. And that was when I had to really make that decision in our marriage to say, okay, she doesn't love me. And I think this is probably, 4 months in or something like that. But it's like, okay, she doesn't love me. But what do I need to do then to cause her to love me? Because I definitely loved you. Yeah. I think I think we both learned later that we were never really in love when we got married.
I think that's what I was gonna say. Like that whole like, no, I don't think we were. Like, I love you today way more than I ever loved you when we got married 10 years ago, right? You silly. I do. Relax. Podcast over. Relax, bruh. I do. I like you a lot more too. But I think just a lot of people get married or they get into relationship and it's like they love the idea of being married. They love the idea of being with that person or that type of person. But learning that individual for who they are is not necessarily who they are loving, initially. They're loving the idea, like loving the fact that, oh, this person has these kind of character traits. Oh, this person looks like this. Oh, this person has this kind of swag or this kind of whatever. Swaggy. And then not necessarily falling in love, not even falling in love, but choosing to love that person through like they struggles with their identity, choosing to love them through as they are learning and being sanctified into the image of Christ, like choosing to love them in those moments. Like you don't think about that when you get married at first. You think about like, oh, I like all of this today, this nice, well-developed package, not like everything underneath the package.
And as you were talking, literally something that hit me was when we think about ancient Near Eastern cultures and marriages, we know that there was a lot of arranged marriages. It wasn't like a lot of their passion was really that married at first sight type thing. Like when you think about, it was like even with Adam, it was an arranged marriage. Like God brought her, like this is you. He
was like, this yours.
You know what I'm saying? We see stories where I believe it was Jacob or whatever, Joseph, and it was like when he saw Rebecca, and it was like, and she was beautiful. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of these times, there wasn't this buildup of an emotional love that took place, and yet while it did change a little bit by the time we get into Second Temple Judaism. Yet and still, we see there was still this level of arranged marriages taking place. And you see Paul talking about husbands, love your wives. And sometimes we can read that from the emotional lens of our idea. But Paul is saying, even if y'all not married because y'all fell over heels, dated for a year, had this deep love, the requirement to love your wife does not change. Correct. Because it's not based on an emotional thing anymore.
No, it's based on obedience.
It's based on obedience, and deeper than that, it's based on the love that we received and being in covenant with being in covenant with the Father through Christ. That is the picture of marriage. So when Paul is saying love your wife as Christ loved the church, then that even extends to the point of when you weren't loving me, I loved you.
Yeah, that's good, babe.
And so I think a lot of times, even when people can maybe listen to our story, it's kind of like, man, y'all crazy. And it's like, but as maybe for the world may watch this and be like, man, but if you're a believer watching this, it may sound crazy, but it is the call. Yeah. It is the vow. It is the oath that we don't get to choose to only love those who love us. No,
facts, yeah.
Jesus told us to even love our enemies.
Love our enemies. Pray for those who
persecute
you and do you dirty.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so that's why I say like I was smacked with the gospel. in that moment. And God didn't let me off the hook. The world would have let me off the hook. And obviously I wasn't uncovering you then. So it wasn't like I was running around telling people like most of the stuff people are hearing today, but our friends and stuff is gonna be listening like, well,
I thought y'all was good.
That was going on in y'all, because we wasn't running around uncovering each other. We just lived our life. But it's like, I think like that was something that like I just had to get faced with. I think that was a reality that God hit me with, and he just didn't let me off the same hook that the world would have let me off of. He literally dealt with me, which had me in tears saying, love her. Yeah. She don't love me, God. That's okay. Love her. And that's what I did. Not perfectly.
No, you did it very imperfectly, but it was perfect enough. I would say, because what did end up happening, and like just like the gospel met you there, like Christ met me there, in realizing that, you know, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. And, you know, while we were enemies to him, he loved on us. And it was like, yo, when you sit and think about just not wanting to be around a person, not wanting a person to touch you, not just a person, but your spouse, your husband to touch you, to talk to you, not wanting to be in his presence or him to be in your presence, just being annoyed at like everything about you got on my nerve, and not just like an irritation, but like I would have a visceral response, like I didn't like you, but then to slowly see you like really trying to do things that were outside of your comfort zone at that time, really trying to speak my love language, really trying to serve, run bath waters, go get meals, make food, do stuff with the girls that I had started doing, like really, really trying to, you know, change your tone, trying to listen and hear me out, being patient, like those kind of things really started to soften my heart a lot. To where it was like, Didi, why are you being mean to him? Like, you have no reason to be a jerk anymore to him. Like, he ain't doing nothing wrong. He does care about your feelings. He does respect you. He does value you. You tripping now. You know what I mean? And I think when faced with the fact that like, oh no, you're the one who's wrong. You're the one who's in sin. You're the one who it has chosen to distance yourself and need to be reconciled. It really started to change the way I began to view you. But when I look at that through the lens of what Christ did, you know what I mean? I have to come to a conclusion, or I have to come to this resolve in myself that, yo, like I'm an enemy of God. I'm the one who has jacked up this relationship, not him. And so I need to choose to turn back to him. And so in a similar way, I needed to choose to repent and come back to you to reconcile our marriage.
Yeah, and so I'm glad that you did that, you know what I'm saying?
You know, shout out to God.
Shout out to God. But it was a humbling season for me. And really had to let go a lot of pride and selfishness, but then also having to do the work ourselves, like myself, meaning like, it's one thing to just be like, she don't love me. It's another thing to be like, okay, what are the things I had to come to terms with the stuff we talked about in previous episodes. Like there were it wasn't like I was perfect. There were things I was doing. And so it was kind of like, yo, okay, so what areas as a husband are you not loving her well in that you can do the work to make effort, imperfect effort, to show her that you care, to show her that that you do want, you know, to be loved back, and that you do want her to know like that you love her. And so that was a season, but I just think the biggest thing was that it was a choice. Like I had the choice. Like Jesus didn't come down and be like, you're going to hell if you leave her. You know what I'm saying? Like I had to on that, and I remember that night, I had to on my knees praying on that green couch in the back day room. Like that was my bed forever, because I worked that third shift job, I mean that 12-hour shift job. But I had to make the choice to get off my knees and say, okay, God, I'm going to choose to love. And I'm going to choose to not just love you, but I'm going to choose to trust God. That in my obedience to him, he will do the work on my spouse to bring her around imperfectly as well, so that we can now begin to imperfectly love one another and do that journey of knowing what it means to love each other.
And I think so that's really risky, Right.
Super
you know
risky.
what I mean? Because then everything, that trust and that faith come in, because then everything is contingent on trusting God to do a work in my heart so that I respond, and you ain't just out here for years and years loving me and loving me and loving me. And I'm out here being a jerk and dogging you and not wanting to be, you know what I mean? Like that takes a lot of risk. You know what I mean? Because I know a lot of couples out here that there is a struggle with, like, okay, so what if I love her the way Christ said and she don't respect me? Yeah. She still choose not to, and I'm doing everything. And there's this fear that a lot of couples have of getting played on the end, that they're doing everything that God has called them to do as a spouse, and then their spouse doesn't respond in the way that God has called them to respond. You know what I mean? And people struggle with that, which is legit, because what you just said was that you had a choice to love, which was an action, a verb, a lot of sacrifice and all of that. But then on the other hand, you had to also choose to trust God and have faith that he would do something in my heart and in my life. And so I'm just saying that, say, like, both of it has to happen because God had to do a work in my life, you know, at the same time.
And here's the other reason why, you know, I'm biased to the fact that believers need to be with believers.
Facts.
Because while it is risky, no matter how many problems we were going through, I still knew I married a woman of God. Yeah, like what you weren't playing Christian. Like, we ain't perfect, but it wasn't like you was living, like, our relationship wasn't going well, but you wasn't living this ratchet secret life behind scenes. So it made it also easier knowing that, hey, it's rough. I'm about to trust God, but I know I married someone who is praying, who is reading the word, who wants to surrender their life to the Lord and wants to be obedient to him. So, and that's why it's harder for some of these things we're talking about.
Because there's no hope in that. If you're not married to a believer
that's submitted to, not just a believer,
you're right, a submitted believer. No, you're right. Because then, like, you already know that, like, they're endowed with the Spirit because they are believers, but then they're getting filled, you know, in a regular way. And in those opportunities when they're getting filled is when some change and transformation have, opposed to somebody who's just dry all the daggone time. Right. And then there's not a lot of fruit from something that's dry. You know what I mean? And so, you know, it's very beneficial to marry a submitted believer. You know, if you're trying to get married, I'm just saying that should be the first, you know, thing you look for.
If you are watching this, man, or if there's any instruction, especially if you are a follower of Christ, man, the Bible means what it means when it says not to be unequally yoked with an unbeliever. The Bible means what it says when it says, how can two walk together unless they first agree? I know that can sometimes be annoying Bible verses, but when it gets into the difficulties of what it means to be one, you need that person to be surrendered and submitted to the Lord, because who are you giving that person over to?
Right. Yourself. Who they submitted to.
You can't do the work. I can't make you become anything. Only the Holy Spirit can bring transformation in your heart, and only the Holy Spirit was able to bring transformation in my heart. But if they're not submitted to the Lord, they're not walking with the Lord.
It's a battle.
Then
that's hard.
That's hard.
I think the length of time to be patient extends, you know what I mean? You know how First Peter talks about not being a nagging wife and all of that other stuff, but by the way you live, it'll draw your husband, you know, to the faith. And so, like, but that, I mean, you talking about like that couple we know from our previous church, like years and years of praying for a transformation. They had been married for 40 years before he got saved. Oh yeah, I'm like, who you talking about? Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I'm just like, and he didn't appear to be a trash husband, so praise God for that. But what I'm saying is, if someone is, you know, and you're in that thing as a resolute believer, that's a long time potentially. So, you know, not saying that God can't transform hearts, because he can, only God can, but you know, that's time.
Facts. So that's our advice there. I'm not gonna budge on that, man. You need to be with somebody that is in covenant, so that they can make a decision to choose to love you based on the love decision that Christ made for them, and they respond to their spouse based on that. And one of the things too that kind of pressed us and pushed us into figuring out how to love each other was during that first year. You know, I think we talked about in one of the episodes how we came back, you got off the depot shot, and then right away you ended up getting pregnant. I got you pregnant. Got you. Not the Lord. I did. I got you.
Yeah.
So I got you pregnant.
He got Mary pregnant, not me.
So I got yes, he did. And so you end up getting pregnant. And so in the midst of a lot of this too, you were pregnant, right? And it was so that added.
And that wasn't a good pregnancy.
That
was hard one. I was sick the whole time. I was losing weight. I couldn't keep no food down.
Yeah,
that was a rough.
That was a rough pregnancy, and kind of in the midst of all of that, then we end up dealing with the loss, the loss of Devin. Yeah. And so those that, if you ever been to our house, or even if you've been watching the teddy bear that my wife is holding, that's missing the eye now.
Yeah, she been playing with her brothers.
Is the teddy bear? We call it the teddy bear Devin, but the reason we do that is because inside of the teddy bear is our daughter's ashes. And so 7 months in to
7 months pregnant, 28 weeks. She didn't have a heartbeat when we went for an ultrasound.
Yeah, and so because of the progression of the pregnancy, we had to do a birth.
Yeah, we had to do a delivery.
Yeah, we had to do the delivery. And that whole process and everything was just extremely traumatic. Even having to do the delivery, it was a lot going on. We may hit on some of those in a later episode, but one of the things that came out of that, next Tuesday, right? Next Wednesday? Next Tuesday would be her ninth birthday. One of the things that we always do when we celebrate her birthday with our family is we always thank her for her sacrifice. And while obviously we wish our daughter was with us, but one of the things that took place with the loss was we had nobody else to cling to but each other. Yeah. And we had to figure out how to love each other through a crisis and pain. And it caused us to draw nearer to each other, it caused us to trust each other, be more vulnerable with each other, depend on each other, because nobody understood what we were going through. And because we weren't all loss is hard. Yeah. But we also was dealing with the trauma behind the birth, and the hope and the expectations and the prayers of it was a lot of spiritual things.
We sure did pray that prayers like you raised Lazarus from the dead.
Yeah, it was a lot, man. Like me being angry with the Lord afterwards. But I'm a whole pastor. I went a whole year. Let's say about 6 or 7 months not talking to God, but still having to preach messages. It was just like, I was just like, God, I have nothing to say to you right now. And I know you're not going to say anything back that's going to comfort me because of your sovereignty. So I'd rather not talk to you about it. What was understood don't need to be spoken.
Yep. And it was some time for me. I was having a hard time parenting the girls. Yeah. I wouldn't be able to do their hair. Yeah. Simple things like pick out their clothes, just regular things that I had been doing. I was having a really difficult time. And then we had a niece that was born that we had similar due dates for. And I was having a hard time, the baby shower for your sister. And then even that first, just time, because their birthdays were supposed to be a week, 2 weeks apart. So it was tough.
Yeah. So we had to learn how to love through that. And that's why one of the things that we always, you never know what God got going on, and we don't always like what he got going on. But literally that drew us closer to each other than we probably thought we would be in that season, because we were still in that 14, 16 month period of a year and a half type marker of our marriage. And it was very much the timelines are so close to the choosing to love statement to doing the work. They weren't months apart. That was all that same season. And so that's one of the reasons why we always thank her for her sacrifice of while we wish that we had her and we was raising her, we definitely appreciate the fact that it was in her death that we've learned how to love each other and to be who we are today, which makes us better for our boys, or better for the girls for sure, but just like our boys being able to see from inception healthy marriage, even though Dominic be telling people they argue all the time.
Stop arguing.
Why y'all mad at each other?
Yeah, stop it. We were arguing a couple nights ago or last week sometime, and he
came in the door.
It.
He came in the room like, why y'all arguing?
Get out my face, because we having a conversation. When we stop talking, that's when the problem is.
That's when the problem.
We can have nice fellowship.
Absolutely. So that's our journey, man. That's a little bit, even just a little bit deeper into some of the stuff that we dealt with in our marriage. But the biggest thing that we wanted to just share with you guys in this episode was the concept of when you're in marriage, man, there has to be decisions and choices that are made.
Correct.
And one of those decisions is the choice and the decision to say that, you know what, I'm going to love you. Regardless, when we talk about our marriage dynamic, we're both resolute people.
Yeah.
And two resolute people are just committed to what they said.
They say they gonna do.
What we said we gonna do. And so, man, you guys, if you're married, if you're thinking about marriage, if you're going through some hard things, man, I really just want to encourage you guys to make a decision. Make a decision to say, you know what? I'm going to choose to love my spouse and trust God in the process. And it can be frustrating. It can be scary. Yeah. It can be humbling. But man, we just truly believe that, man, when we are obedient to the Lord, when we lay down our flesh and our life for the Lord, that, man, that he does raise us up. And what that looks like, I can't tell you. But what I can say is that it's not in vain.
It's not.
And you can use our story as hope for anticipation, that if you continue to do that, and you really do the work on yourself, that, man, imperfectly, your marriage will be restored and you will begin to see the love actually begin to develop. And begin to develop in a way that is really an unshakable, unbreakable foundation. Like, ain't nobody, I can say that, I ain't gotta be afraid to say it. Like, ain't nobody getting in between. It's death till we do us part around here. Absolutely. Like ain't no woman coming in between me and my wife. Ain't no situation. We just be like, hey, it is what it is. You don't know what we went through. So that what you got going on ain't enough. Baby girl, what you gonna take me from my wife? Like, I know what I got with her. You ain't gonna like my stuff, so you go ahead about your business now.
Right. No, facts. That's something my aunt used to always say. She say about my uncle all the time. She'd be like, because he in ministry, she'd be like, yeah, go ahead, try and take him. And you gonna have to deal with learning this man for the next, all his stuff, all his trauma, all his kids, all his everything. And don't nobody got time. People don't want to invest that layer of getting to know people at inception. That comes from time together too. You know what I mean? So. And
that's why they be sneaky links. Shout out to our brother and sister, AJ and Lav and they podcast. That's why they don't want them investments. So it's easy just to be a little side thing. Cause I ain't got to deal with all. This stuff. But they did a podcast on that already. So y'all go ahead and shout them out. Studio 415, man. Check out their podcast on that. Listen, guys. Again, man, we just wanted to talk to you guys about what it means to choose to love from our journey and how we had to make that decision and how that is another reason why we are here celebrating 10 years of marriage this year, because we made a decision and we made a choice to love. And so I'm praying that you guys will make that choice as well. Listen, guys, do us a favor, man. If this podcast is helping you, if it is blessing you, if it is entertainment to you, whatever it is to you, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button, hit that share button, and help us get this podcast out. Don't let this just be something that blesses you. Let it bless other people. And so again, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, hit the like, hit the share, hit all the buttons in the words of my wife, man. And we will catch you at our next episode on Tanks Talk
Podcast.
Take care.